Hello, and welcome to WTF Book Tea, spoilers included.
Basically our book club. So today we are going to be talking about the glorious
Tempest of Tea.
A Tempest of Tea. So some fun backstory about how we got here was I was scrolling on Libby and I found A Tempest of Tea and it was available, the audiobook, and so I listened to it and I really enjoyed it. So I was like, Aubin, you gotta listen to this.
She bugged me incessantly.
I bug Aubin about any book I read.
Yeah. You'd think I'd get permission not to do that sometimes, but
yeah, I mean, you still haven't read so many. I really enjoyed it. Aubin read it, and we were like, this is a really interesting story. We should talk about it in a more in-depth way. So then we went to a really cool book signing where we got this copy. It is the Barnes & Noble special edition. I don't know if this is only Barnes & Noble special editions, but it has an extra short story in the back and a recipe for cookies, which is what we're eating right here.
We made them.
Which they're delicious, by the way. I've already had like 3.
Yeah. I've only had a bite of one that Ella gave me when they came out of the oven, so I'm excited to have them.
Yeah. So as you can see, there are 2 bookmarks in here. We also got these bookmarks and this tea from the book signing, which was super cool.
It comes in this
Yeah, it's really nice and delicious. This tea is so yummy.
So good.
So if you're wondering, that's not very far in the book, you're correct. This is us reading and annotating the book. So we've both listened to the audiobooks.
Yeah.
And the readers.
So we read all of the
book.
All of the book.
And we've read the short story together. But it was super interesting to reread it. I love rereading books. I enjoy books the second time through more than I do the first generally. So yeah, it's been really interesting.
So guys, this is your last warning. Warning. This is
spoilers included.
Yeah, and we call it that because we are going to go into every aspect of the book, assuming that you have already read this book. So if you haven't read this book, go read the book first. Come back when you've read it, and this is your last warning. We're about to get into a bunch of spoilers, the whole book.
Yeah,
guys.
We're gonna get really in depth because we are both writers. Aubin's a published author with A Second Nature of Indigo up there. I'm almost a published author. So close. In a couple of months, I will be a published author. So we're really talking about the writing, the technical side of it.
Yes.
All the little details that we get as writers. The things that stick out to us.
Yes.
So where should we start? I guess at the beginning.
At the beginning, I guess.
Oh, okay. I'm going to read the first opening line, or you can.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so the really cool thing about having a physical copy that we share is we annotate in 2 different colors. So Aubin's annotating in pink for this book, and I'm annotating in purple.
Oh my gosh, hold on. Let me show you guys my favorite page that I did.
The gin? Or the...
No, it's this one. I edited it a lot.
Is it the one where Mateo gets introduced?
Yeah. Not introduced, but...
Where he's the most Mateo-y.
Actually, hold on. Nope, this is the info dump. Yeah. If I'm ever not enjoying a book, I usually have more notes. So it opens with Arthi, Chapter 1. The streets of white roaring grew fangs at night, when the moon dragged a claw and the shop fronts cut dim, and those who craved blood walked bold. Arthi Casimir couldn't be bothered by the cold, by the dark, by the vampires. Business never stopped.
I think... that is a perfect opening for this story. It shows the character, it shows the world, it shows the conflict, it shows the drive.
Yeah.
Already we know there are vampires, there are people who are afraid of them.
Yeah.
We have a strong businesswoman.
Yeah. Yeah, you might want that.
Who's not afraid of... Yeah, I was eating, so I wanted to avoid. We have a very structured opening, and also, I love the opening line.
Yeah, I wrote banger first line.
Yeah.
I also think it illustrates one of the coolest things about Hafsah's writing, or Miss Faizal's writing, is that she can be really cool with her description of things, like when the moon dragged a claw and the shop fronts cut dim. I think that's really cool line work that and line work is like line by line, like words as like development.
Your prose.
Stuff. Yeah, your prose basically. So I think that's like a
it's
really strong example of her, like what she can do with her line edits.
Yeah. And her style in general. Just
her style is so vastly different from mine, so it's hard to read it out loud. Like when I was reading you, so we read the like short story between Flick and Jin this morning while we were making the cookies.
As the short story between Flick and Jin. It's a story.
It's mostly not between Jin, but yeah,
it's mostly about Flick.
Yeah,
but Jin.
So it was just. It's not a bad thing, but it's just harder for me to read out loud because...
I mean, you did that with reading my story.
Yeah, like, exactly.
We have such vastly different
styles that... My brain sometimes is like, what? Oh, yeah, we were going to talk about some of how we want you to watch this video. So, we want you to really enjoy, like, listening to our thoughts on this book because we've thought about it a lot, we've talked about it a lot, we've gone through it quite a bit. We, like, went to go see her in person. We asked her questions at the signing, and... I read all of We Hunt the Flame, and guys, I'm trying to get through all of We Free the Stars. Yeah. It's a long book. I think I'm like halfway through. So I wanted to make like a really informed video about like this book, but also Miss Faizal's writing and all of it. So we've done a lot of research, and we have a lot of technical information, but this isn't telling you what to think about the book. This isn't telling you how to feel about the book, much less.
And we're not even telling you facts. Like, we just enjoy how her prose work. We're not saying, like, this is the ideal. Yeah, Or we could be like, later we'll talk about things that we don't love. But, I mean, that doesn't mean it's bad.
Exactly.
It means that our personal tastes don't align with.
And I'll say, like, some things I don't believe are technically super strong in some parts. But, like, that doesn't mean she's a bad writer or she doesn't deserve respect. Like... We respect this book a lot and the writer a lot. So our most important point is read the book on your own and think really critically about it on your own and form your own opinions and thoughts.
We're not like the critic to end all critics.
No, absolutely not. So
I mean, again, we're still pretty young. So our styles and our ideals will probably change. So
and we talked about this in the Carval video. So every time you read a book, at different points in your life, you have different opinions. So our opinions might change. Your opinions might change. This is how art works. Your impression of it changes over time.
You read Carval 3 times.
I read Carval 3 times, and I had very different impressions of it each time. So, and next time I read it, which, I'll probably indulge soon, I will have a different opinion of it. Which is why I started reading this book twice, but...
Yeah, it's so interesting what lines stuck out to me this time and what I had forgotten.
Yeah.
And what I had remembered more than it was.
Yes, sometimes that happens a lot in books. Like, some scenes just really, some lines or scenes just really stick out to you, and you're like, this was not
very important.
Focused on. Yeah.
So, should we start with character?
Sure, yeah. So Ella didn't like Mateo at first.
I'm sorry. That's not what we're talking about right now. So it is a multi-POV book following 3 POVs and 5 main characters. So it's very interesting. I really enjoy multiple POV books. So getting that perspective was very fun. So the 5 main characters are Arthi, who's the young woman on the cover. She is, obviously, if you've read it, which hopefully you will have, the owner of Spindrift. Very ruthless in a lot of ways. Like, I had forgotten about the part where
she shoots Mateo.
No,
I forgot about that. Okay, guys. Classic, thing about me is that I always forget the major plot, but I remember subplots.
Yeah.
So, the most important things I kind of forget, but then I'm like, man, but that, shirt he was wearing, or that umbrella.
When we were reading the short story, Aubin was like, oh my, wait, but if this is at that time, then Jin would be a vampire already. And I was like, Aubin, if it was at that time, Spindrift would be gone. And Aubin was like, oh, I forgot about that.
I did this with Carval too, which I've read 3 times, guys. I've read Carval 3 times and I still forgot most of the major plots.
Nice.
In book 2 and 3.
But the thing that I had forgotten is when she takes the guy who owns the building that they live, the Spinner Citizen, she like takes off his glasses and like breaks it. Like I had forgotten that. She's very intense, very ruthless, I guess is the word that I would use to describe her. Very very structured in her ideals and her methods. Like, you always know that Arthi has a plan, which is very interesting. And actually, interestingly enough, because I'm reading Six of Crows, she's kind of like Kaz.
I was gonna say she's a lot like Kaz in some ways.
And then we have Jin, who is her adopted brother.
Much more like Jesper, if we're still going
on Six of Crows.
Going with Six of Crows.
He's much more... It's interesting because he's not passive, but I'm going to be kind of weird and comp him to Cardin in, like, the interesting morals that he has. Like how Cardin doesn't kill people, but he's fine with, like, you know, mauling people. Jin is fine with, like, brawling with people, but he never uses a gun, really. He, like, really dislikes guns. So, like, where he draws the line is very interesting. And he's also a very friendly, charismatic character, but like Arthi, very willing to be ruthless. But in a different way, I would say. He's much less... He's obviously
I think he's
not
less
the
invested on how it comes back to him. Arthi's kind of more gaming for the impression that it will leave,
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion. Because she's trying to create a name, and Jin is less focused on trying to create a name. He's more relaxed in the name he already has. In my impression.
Yeah. I definitely see that. Yeah, I also like how Jin is a lot more neutral, I would say. He's much more of like a benefit of the doubt kind of character. Like Arthi...
except with Mateo.
Is... I don't know. Because with Mateo, we never actually got his perspective with that meeting. We only got his perspective.
No, when he's like, Mateo betrayed us. But he just made a baking holiday mistake.
Oh, that's true. But I mean, I feel like that's reasonable. You know?
I feel like his disposition was to not trust Mateo. So then that resurfaced pretty quickly. Which I think is very, I think it's normal.
Very,
As a human, it's like, I already didn't trust you, but now...
things are going really poorly.
And I think it's your fault.
Yeah. It seems really likely.
But they should have already read it, so... Yeah.
Yeah, we're totally assuming that you've read it. We're gonna give things without context.
Yeah.
I would say that Jin... But I mean with Flick, I think because he grew up in a privileged household, in a fancy neighborhood, he's much less likely to be like rich people. I don't know. I mean, that might be mean to Arthi, but I feel like she does that, you know?
I don't know. I was actually highlighting some stuff in Jin's chapter.
That's true.
Where I was like, some of this stuff kind of strikes me as weird, but we might want to have a different part of that.
Yeah. And then we have Flick, who is a lovely counter to both.
Well, if we're going in order of how they appear, it would be Mateo next.
But Flick is a POV. We'll get to Mateo eventually. We'll do Mateo next. Anyway, so Flick. Flick is a fascinating counter to both Jin and Arthi.
Yes.
Flick is like the opposite side of the spectrum with trust, with whimsy.
Yeah.
Like Arthi is very
anti-whimsy.
Yeah. Like
Jin is in the middle.
Realist. Yeah, Jin is in the middle. He can dabble in whimsy.
I think he likes to be whimsical,
but he's not.
But he also lives with Arthi. Trained. Yeah, he's been like his brain works in a much less whimsical way. And Flick is more like she is whimsical and she has to work not to be in a whimsical way. Maybe whimsical isn't the right word. It is. It's close, but it's not all. It doesn't encompass all of her.
That's true.
Thought process, I think.
It's a very creative thought process.
Yeah.
She, first of all, is the only character that still lives in an upper class household.
Mateo.
That's true.
But he's alone, so it's
He's
not
alone.
like he's
It's
not.
not a household.
It's not a
per
household.
se.
It's just him.
It's him. Yeah.
So.
And he's in this weird gray area. Actually, I wish we had more of Mateo, because we never get to see his.
I see.
Mateo is fascinating.
Underappreciated, in my opinion, in the book.
Hopefully, we will get more of Mateo
in Steeping of Blood.
Yeah, Steeping of Blood. Which also cool name, by the way. A Tempest of Tea and A Steeping of Blood. I like
those are pretty cool names. She's pretty good at titles. Mm-hmm. I don't know if she picked them out or the publisher, but yeah, those really are good choices.
So Flick is also really fascinating in how she contrasts herself, because she's a criminal, but in a kind way.
Yeah,
like, she started becoming a criminal because she wanted to help people.
Yeah,
and then it fed into wanting to be recognized for her help and wanting to be appreciated by her mom.
Yeah,
which is a very, honest and human thing to do. Like, any kid with an absent parent wants more of that, wants to see their parent again. So I thought that was a really sweet and beautiful transition of her. And even later, when she's realizing that her mom, doesn't care for her, it's also a very sweet and honest transition into, but now I do have people who care about me.
Yeah.
And I don't need to prove to them through...
Which is interesting, because I think, Anyway, go ahead.
Through, changing. And I do really appreciate the part where she says to Jin, I don't...
Call me by the name I made for myself.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about that part, but I do love that one, too. But when she's I don't forge anymore. And he's like, what? But he also seems willing to let her not.
Yeah.
And so that's, the contrast between Jin and Flick's mom, because it's oh...
You've made a decision.
And I respect that.
Even though that decision goes against what I want for you, or from you.
From you.
Basically.
So it's I still appreciate you as Flick or Felicity.
Felicity.
And, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really sweet. I love Flick. She's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
I really loved her perspective on the things.
Yeah.
So Flick was the one that I resonated with the most. So I was just like, oh, yeah.
Who did I resonate with the most? I guess we'll find out through this video. At the end, I'll figure it out. No!
Alrighty, moving on to
Mateo!
The fancy man. Okay, I appreciated Mateo way more the second time through.
Yeah!
I don't know how. I think it was because I was listening to the audiobook. And when I listen to the audiobook, it's much less about the lines for me and more about the overall. And I feel like Mateo has so little
overall
that it's if you don't get his magical moments, then he's just
then you don't really get any of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Mateo is one of only 2 of the main characters that don't have a POV, so we never get his impression of what's going on.
I was really sad we never got Mateo's point of view, even though I do think it was overall a good decision. Of course I was sad.
He's in it so little.
Yeah, and I feel like that was a really interesting choice.
Yeah.
It was very interesting.
I strongly believe that he will be way more in
I think
in
he
the
might be a
second
POV
one. I think he will probably be a
Steeping of
POV in the Steeping of Blood. Yeah, well, we'll give more theories at the end.
Okay, so here's what a note I wrote about Mateo as I was reading through that first scene. And it's there is soft power and there's brutal power. And I think one reason M is my favorite character is because he represents kind of this softer power. Yeah. And Arthi is very much a brutal power or a much more harsh power.
Arthi rules through knowing what you need.
Yes.
And Mateo rules through...
and manipulating
what you want. He can give you what you want.
Because I think Arthi knows what you want and uses it against you.
But she, more often than not, is threatening with taking away what you need.
I don't know. A lot of it's affairs. I know she...
But that's what you need for your position. If she told people, then they would lose their position. They would lose their standing. So she is in the business of taking away, whereas Mateo is in the business of adding.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting contrast.
So then what's Laith?
Laith is in the business of making problems.
Or making promises. I think he makes a lot of promises. And I guess I just never believed him.
I think also Laith is in the business of promise, like, smoke and mirrors. Like,
Yeah.
he'll give you something, but he can't, or he...
I think, to contrast him with, let's say, Legend from Caraval, I think Legend is also very into smoke and mirrors, but I think there's
But he can actually give it to you.
There's something different about Legend's smoke and mirrors than Laith's smoke and mirrors. I think it's because I never was as intrigued by Laith. So I was never willing to, like, believe him, even when I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Even though with Legend, I'm like, I don't know if I should believe you, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm excited to see where this is going.
Yeah, with Laith, again, like with Mateo, I feel like not having that POV meant we got so much less of them.
Yes.
I mean, I do appreciate the 3 POVs that we got, and I think that more than that would have made the book chaotic.
Yeah.
But...
And I think part of the reveals at the end were kind of made possible by not I mean, it would have been really hard. I think it would have been like small seeds of Laith's perspective.
Yeah, I feel like we couldn't have had the reveals that we did if we had Laith. Yeah, those are the main 4, 5.
Laith is my least favorite.
Laith is also my least favorite. I think it was because he was... First of all, I feel like we only saw him through Arthy's perspective.
Yes.
He never interacted with Jin. He barely...
Yeah, that was
he barely
that
interacted
was one of my
with Jin,
problems.
and
like,
he never really interacted with Flick. So we only got his perspective... he only got him through Arthy's perspective.
I also think that, like, it shows a degree of respect when you interact with other characters. And, like, Mateo does that, even if it's not a lot. Yeah, like, he interacts with the other characters, but to Flick, I can't really... I'd never got an impression from Laith interacting with the other characters. And I feel like that, to me, was kind of suspicious, because I was like, if you actually care about Arthy as a person, you're going to care about the people around her and the people she cares about. And I think there was this, like, certain level of caring that Laith had for Arthy, but... I don't know, it just seemed kind of shallow. And Laith seemed kind of shallow from the beginning for me. And I think that was why I was never rooting for him. And that really caused problems for me later on, where I was supposed to feel bad for him. And I did. But not like,
I feel like we never got spaces of silence with Laith.
Ooh.
Because I feel like even with Flick, how she's introduced is a space of silence. It's just her at her house.
Yeah.
And even with Mateo, it's quiet when Arthy's threatening him when we first meet him. Like, but every time we see Laith, he's there and then he's gone. You know? I feel like he always appears and then leaves.
Another thing I also think about Laith is that all his moments had a romantic undertone to them. And it was kind of outside of their control. Like, it was always this, I don't know.
Pressure.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that Mateo, respects Flick as a person. I don't know. I just felt like Laith was kind of
treats her like he treats other people.
Yeah. And he also treats Jin like he treats other people. And he treats Arthy,
slightly
differently, but it's also still in a human way. I feel like Laith was kind of unhuman.
Yes.
It just seemed...
had I read We Hunt the Flame before and I knew he was from Moravia, I would have been like, oh, I bet he's I don't know, some magical creature. And yeah, he's not magical, which I was kind of like, he's not magical? What?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm reading this part. And even Mateo treats Laith as a person.
Yes. Like, I actually really loved the relationship between Laith and Mateo.
Yeah, it's really funny. And I don't know, Mateo is the most human vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mateo was a very well drawn character throughout all of his interactions.
Yeah.
I would say Laith wasn't drawn as much. Like, I feel like there's so little that I saw of Laith. Like, I saw very little of Mateo. But what I did see was very interesting.
I think it was the real Mateo. And what we did see of Laith was not really Laith.
Yeah, it was
or if it was like, I still didn't believe
just
him.
bits and pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if the stakes in each scene made me not believe him as much, because I was like, there's so much at stake in this scene. It's like, do I believe you? Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe let's work our way through the plot beats.
So,
First plot beat
is everything starting up with the problems, Spindrift being on the edge of collapse, everyone having a different motive to get the ledger. Okay, this was something that bothered me. I felt like Mateo didn't have enough of a reason. Yeah, I mean, actually he is given a reason. Yeah, I think that his reason, I'm trying to skim because I'm a pretty slow reader, but I think his reason was the disappearings of the vampires.
Yes, and I was kind of sad that never really made its way into the plot that much. I kept waiting for, like, and yes, that reveal happened, like, towards the end with Penn, but, like, I don't know. I was kind of expecting more from that. I had just, let's be honest, I had just read Stalking Jack the Ripper, so I was already kind of in that mode of, like, ooh, mysteries, disappearances, like, I guess I was just expecting more of that.
I mean, the ledger was cool, and them being, like, selling vampires, like, that was super cool.
That was super cool.
But I think, again, it's another case of it not having enough space.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see Mateo's reaction. I wanted to see Flick's reaction. I mean, I think we did get Flick's reaction, if I remember correctly. And Jin's and Arthi. But, again, we didn't get really Mateo's reaction of that. That I love about pacing is how the chapters got really, really short at the end. I found that fascinating.
Yeah, I like that. I like when that happens too.
Yeah, it makes you feel more active. Just one more chapter, and then it's so short, and you're just like, just one more chapter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Overall, I would say it's very Hafsah Faizal does a really great job of writing. You know, her word choices and her sentence structure are all really, really cool.
I would say there were definitely times when I was like going through the first things when I was like, this was a really important word. Like when you're writing, there are some words that are more important than others, genuinely. Yeah. And, like, these moments occur when something needs to be communicated in a moment. Like, this is one moment. It's usually a reaction. Yeah. It's, like, you have kind of, like, a very short amount of time to explain how this character is reacting to X, Y information. And I think occasionally she doesn't always nail that word. Like, I think she used said when I was like, said is just not the word to be used here because it's not giving me what I was looking for.
Yeah, like, there are points in time, like, this is when Spindrift is, like, turning into the Bloodhouse. Yeah. And Jin fell back, slipping through the air as the sofa unfolded to cocoon him in plush cushions. Like, that is such a cool visual. And I loved that. I loved his confidence. It shows character. It shows environment. It shows his strength in his own work. Yeah. Which I thought was really cool. But there are other times, like, where she over-explains stuff and she keeps repeating stuff. Like, I think Arthi came on really strong, which
Absolutely.
I appreciated.
I agree.
I appreciated how strong she was. But that strength continued until it became tiring. Like, I love to hear Arthi's character, but when I'm, like, repeatedly being told it becomes oppressive.
Well, I think it becomes more of a, like, her past becomes more of a character than she is in the present. And I think that kind of became a problem. Yeah. I think your past shapes you in your present, but absolutely, like, no doubt. Arthi's past was actually really beautiful. Like, the way she described the red beads on the star. Like, I still, like, very clearly remember that because it was so sad. And even the boat. Like, the boat. Oh, the boat. That was cool. I loved that moment.
Yeah, it was such a fascinating story.
The repetition of that story almost kind of took away from its importance. Yeah. Not in beauty, yes.
It's like, yeah, and there are many times where people just get sucked into memories, and then it's like
then it's just a memory
5-page
for a while.
Memory, which I find interesting, and I do appreciate it. Like, I appreciate that we know Jin's backstory, but I would have loved to see it in glimpses.
Same.
Instead of just like here it is. This is why he's here.
I usually like it when I get like teasers for their backstory and
Yeah.
then slow, like the boat. I feel like the boat was the best.
Yeah.
The best example of this. Like we got super light teasers for this moment throughout the book, and then at the end when we found out this part of the story was like,
it's so cool.
It's so cool that it relates to so many moments that I've already lived that it's like, oh man, I appreciate this a lot. And I feel like that could have happened a lot with Jin, but it didn't because the memory was pretty early on. And yes, it does represent their like sibling relationship.
I think it's in his second chapter.
His second chapter? Wow.
Yeah. So
that's really early. I would have put it like middle. But of course, like, you know, it's like really easy to say something, be like, I would have put that in the middle, and then it's like, well, there's really no good time, because it's also not really fair to the reader when you just like, there's a lot going on, and then you just slap this backstory in there for like no good reason. So I get that.
I did appreciate,
and it's kind of hard.
Yeah, and I would say another thing is when the subtlety is repeated until it becomes not subtlety.
I would say that's with like Leith's untrustworthiness. Like, it's like Leith is still untrustworthy. Like, yes, we still don't trust him.
There's this part, Mateo, say that again, darling. Don't call me darling, Arthie said, sitting back and walling away the stupid goosebumps conjured by his voice. Arthie, dearest, Mateo amended. Then there's a second half of this line where it's Mateo amended with eerie calm, giving her a glimpse of the beast that lay beneath his nonchalance. I think that was unnecessary. I liked Mateo amended with eerie calmness. Like, that is...
I actually would kind of... I mean, I haven't read it in context, and flow matters a lot to writing, but,
I would say especially because it's a comma, and then it's Arthie, dearest. Say that again, will you please? Because if it's a full sentence, like, that's just a lot of space between. Like, Arthie, dearest, Mateo amended with eerie calm, giving her a glimpse of the beast that lay beneath his nonchalance. Say that again, will you please? Like, that's just a lot of words. That is a lot of words.
I would have taken off the will you please. But that's also kind of... Mateo is a very polite person in general.
So
which kind of contrasts with Leith as well. Leith is not polite. He's not rude. He's but just not like... Doesn't really care. I think, my impression. I liked the... Oh, man, going back through the first interaction between Mateo and Arthie was really fun.
Yeah.
Like, I abhor violence, like Mateo saying that, like, Arthie, the girl who came to Atenia in a boat full of blood, like,
yeah,
all these things were...
Also seeing how he can play Arthie's game of secrets.
Yes, and we don't even get that as a reader, and I really appreciated that coming through a second time. Okay, also another line that I think is great that I just found is Jin look at you wooing the men, Jin cooed at her. Then he snapped his fingers at Mateo and held his hand. Our money, if you please. And I think like
showing his
that was a really great character line for Jin. Oh my gosh, and also Mateo and Doni, said Arthie, ignoring Jin later. Arthie Casimir. He matched her slow drawl. Like, yes, he's so funny. Like, this is why. Guys, I'm gonna make a PowerPoint about why Mateo is the best character, and maybe not the best character because I also really love Jin and Flick, but he is my favorite love interest for Arthie, even though the other one is not a very great option. So anyway, like going back, that first scene is super fun to read again, and what's not super fun to read again is what happens right after that, which is them explaining the rules of the world. And I noticed this on my first read through. This is amazingly fun. I noticed this on the first way through, and I made quite a few notes about it. That's this page, guys. The one that's covered in notes. I was really, up to this point, I was really enjoying how she was laying out the world, and then this is a 2-page dump of information about how vampires work in this world. And that's just too much. And why is it, like, 2-page dump isn't always too much, but I think because we were leading up into a very fast-paced moment where we were supposed to feel the tension, this diffused that tension for me. And it was also, I was processing so much information, I couldn't really appreciate Spindrift as much, and that was, Spindrift is more important to me than the vampires at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I generally understand what vampires do. You could explain to me about half vampires later, and I think that would actually make the story more fun, because I feel like I'm finding out more and more about these vampires, specifically Mateo, and then later on, Arthi. But, like...
I would say also, there's an even bigger gap. So, it's like, they leave Mateo. They need to rush back to fix Spindrift. Then, vampire dump. Then, backstory of how Spindrift works.
Yes. It was too much.
I would have loved it if they just rushed in and then it happened. Like, they were... Yeah. We were just consumed in the world of Spindrift shifting.
And Spindrift is such a beautiful place. It's such a beautiful world. And I think...
Like, if they had all the detail...
It's like a mini world all to itself.
And it's so cool. And
we didn't really get a ton of time that's just about Spindrift. Like, it's usually about saving Spindrift, but I think I would have liked to feel more cocooned by Spindrift itself. Mm-hmm.
I did really appreciate the part where Flick goes to Spindrift.
Yes.
That was really fun. Mm-hmm. So... I think we did get a decent amount of Spindrift. We got more of Spindrift than Mateo, bro.
Yeah. Spindrift is more of a character than Mateo.
So, I appreciated how detailed Spindrift was. I wish that we got into the detail more.
Yeah.
I think that was why the short story was so fun.
Yes.
Because we got to see a little glimpse into how it worked and how it's so constant. As a thing that you pointed out is, when do they sleep?
Work all day, work all night, sleep when? Never?
Yeah.
Like, that was the question I had, like, the entire first read, and even my second read. I was like, when do these people sleep?
I mean, I'm sure that they have other people running the floor for, like, the middle of the day and the middle of the night. They're probably... Yeah,
but that also brings up the question, why were Jin and Arthi going to Mateo at night?
Yeah, you would think that they would do it in the middle of the day.
I mean, I get why this sets up the next scene really nicely, but, like, I wish I had kind of gotten a little bit more.
It does kind of make sense that it was at night.
They wanted to be secretive?
Yeah, they probably didn't want to be seen going to Mateo's house. Mm-hmm. But, yeah. Oh, one of my favorite lines to introduce character development is, weapons? The butler asked, palm outstretched. No, thank you. Arthi smiled. I have my own. Like, that shows such brazenness and, like, also confidence. She's just like, you're not taking my weapons.
Yeah.
That's, like, not even happening. Mm-hmm. And it shows, like, I really appreciate Arthi's character. I don't agree with her on a lot of things. I don't, like, again, I'm more Flick. I'm more passive than Arthi, but I do really appreciate her backstory and how that interacts with her. Mm-hmm. And I would say, is a very whole character. Like, she is very consistent with herself.
I would say
where she's least consistent is with Leith.
I would say, yes! Okay, I was actually going to say, I would say she was lacking some wholeness, in my opinion, with her care for... I feel like some people...
I wish I had seen her.
I think to compare her to Kaz, which I do not mean to, like, compare... like, they're very different, but I think Kaz has this, like, dual layeredness where he's like, I pretend not to care, and then he has this deeper layer that's like, I care desperately about these people. And I think I never saw as much that layer with Arthi. It's like, I care. I think it was more about, like, I care desperately about Spindrift, but it was like, Spindrift is also like
something she made,
something you made, and it's not like,
it's almost about, like, I care about this place that I have carved for myself.
Yeah, and I think I was kind of missing, like, how much she cared for Jin, how much she cared for Pen, how much she...
I did appreciate how she cared for Jin. I wish we had gotten more of it.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to see is how she cared for the kids that worked in Spindrift. I wish that we had just had, like, a scene or two. She could, be annoyed at them outwardly, but if she also saw them like how she saw Jin when she saved him, and saw them as, like, almost like herself, like these kids who are in a tough place and they're not in a place that they control, and giving them a place, giving them somewhere to stand.
Some degree of control as well.
Yeah.
Because the kids, like,
run the shop, basically.
Yeah, they run the shop, basically, and, like, they have a good life. They have to make important decisions. Mm-hmm. They're given important jobs. And I think, like, that's such a healthy thing to do that I wish I saw a healthier layer of Arthi underneath. But
I know. I feel like because it was such a heist and such a small group, we didn't see how she interacted with the other people in her life. So
yes, which I was kind of missing.
I think the characters felt through the most when we didn't see their humanity.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to see how Jin saw the kids on the street.
Yeah.
And Jin saw the pickpockets and because, like, there was that scene where he was just like, their pickpocket, but that was what you were.
Yeah.
You were a kid on the street. I wish that
there was more of a connection
to that.
Yeah.
And
I
wish
way, like,
I wish if it was, even if it was just like one line, it was like, he just needs to become a better pickpocket. You know?
Yes. Oh my
like,
gosh, that would have been such a
it's
Jin
not putting
line.
down the kid,
or
it's
like
putting down the kid's work. He's like,
yeah.
He's like, no. Being a pickpocket is fine. He just needs to become a better pickpocket.
Or like
con artist, I guess.
Yeah, or like full of Redskin, and he's like, kid, make sure you like pick your marks more carefully.
Yeah.
Or like, kid, make sure, like, gives him tips about like, that would have been really fun for me. I feel like Arthi talks a lot about how people in power don't really care. But then I felt personally like she was kind of being hypocritical when she didn't care about the people around her. Yeah. So that was one reason that, like, I kind of was, like, upset with Arthi about that, because I was like, you're not appreciating the people under or around you, and you call everyone else on that. So, I don't know. It felt vaguely hypocritical to me. Mm-hmm. And it was a point that was harped on a lot.
Yeah.
And
it was a consistent point of Arthi's character to be annoyed at other people for doing it, but she fell into that herself.
So, yeah.
You know what's incredible? Mm-hmm. Is that the first time through, I didn't realize the connections to King Arthur.
Neither did I. I still don't. I still don't really see the King
like,
Arthur
Sword in the
I kind of get it. That was like the only thing I was like, this is vaguely like Sword in the Stone. It was like, what?
Anyway, yeah, no. It took Miss Faizal herself pointing it out to me for me to get it, and I was like,
I get it.
And I did really like the line where, basically, it's the line where she's like, did you hear that? I'm King Arthur. Or Arthi, I guess.
Oh, is that
which
I
did like. You didn't get that?
Nope. Not at all.
Anyway, and I did like that. I thought that was fun.
Okay, so because I never trusted Leith, but I didn't dislike. I never loved him, but I never hated him either.
Yeah.
I was like, he seems very neutral. I expect him to betray us.
You were never surprised.
I was never surprised. And then when he, like, actually got in the way of Arthi to, like, protect her, I was like, okay. And then I felt, like, pretty bad. And then I think one thing that I didn't love at the end was that she was like, Leith betrayed me. And I was like, not more than you betrayed him. Like,
I think that was something that was pointed out. It was like they both betrayed each other. But I think it was... I really hope that in the second book they go through how Arthi is much faster to betray someone than trust someone.
Yeah.
So,
and she's always calling other people out for that too. So it was like, you aren't very loyal. And it's like, well, bro, you aren't very loyal either. I want to talk about the heist for a second.
Okay.
So, Six of Crows is also a heist book.
Yeah.
This heist is epic. It is a heist of epic proportions. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, this heist never seemed as dangerous to me for some reason.
It wasn't, I don't think. I mean, it was dangerous in a nebulous way. It's like, this could kill you, and this could also kill you, and this could also kill you, but they all avoided the danger instead of, like, sneaking. It wasn't, like, face-to-face danger.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time was really, like, getting into
the room.
Which was solved really quickly.
I also liked the flick moment. The flick moment with the, like...
I
liked
did enjoy
that moment.
That was nice. But,
I also surprisingly really loved that moment between Jin and the person he helped. Like, I really loved that backstory, and I thought that was, like, really great.
I enjoyed I wish that I had more... I wish I liked more Pen more.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the end would have been more impactful if I cared more.
I feel like it would have been nice if we had had more hints about Pen. There was, like, that one night when Arthi suddenly had to tell Jin something, and I was like, what? Mm-hmm. And then, hold on. We need to rant for a second about how Flick and Jin were hanging out in his room when Arthi came in, and that moment was never explained. We never got a hint. That was unfair. I was waiting for that, and then we saw it happen through Arthi's perspective when she interrupted them, and then we never got anything else about it. And
I'm just hanging out with Flick.
I'm just hanging out with Flick in my room. I don't know, maybe like on my bed, but it's just totally chill. So nothing happened. You're not missing anything. It's like,
maybe we'll get like a flashback from Flick in the second book.
That would be nice, but like,
I feel like also, you know, feel like we're definitely going to get more Flick and Jin in the second book.
Yes, which will be nice. Even though they're probably... Yeah. I felt like Flick and Jin were almost more of a ship than Arthi and the others. Which was probably a good move.
Yeah. I'd say overall, I enjoyed the book. I wouldn't say that it's going to go into, like, my holy...
No.
Final, like, oh, bury me with these books.
Yeah. It was interesting to hear her talk about writing this one because it was a proposal work instead of her first series, which was what she brought to the publisher. It was I think I could, like, taste some of the differences in her, like, I don't know, the proposaliness of it versus this world that was kind of, like, living inside of her heart, and then she put it on the page.
Yeah. I mean, I think it will be much better once the second book is out. I feel like there's a lot of
we only have half the story
that are halfway done. But I mean, technically, she's obviously a really great prose writer. So
I wish I appreciated all of the characters, even my unappreciation of them. I think like even if I was kind of against Arthi, I wish I appreciated. I mean, I do to some extent, but I think I wish I had gotten there a little bit more.
Thing with
and
Leith.
that could just be a problem with me.
Leith.
I wish I had been sad.
Like, it was Leith, you know? I didn't really feel much about Leith. He was kind of like...
And even with that ending at the that crazy ending, which was like, oh, what's going on?
I'm really excited to see how Jin deals with being a vampire.
Me too.
I think that's going to be... And how Flick reacts to him being a vampire. I think that's going to be really instantaneous. I think that she's just going to be like, I don't care.
Aww.
And I think that's going to be really sweet.
No, he's so sweet.
And I think, I'm excited. I'm really excited to read the next one.
Me too. I think that Mateo is going to become the therapist for
everyone.
Jin and everyone.
Mateo.
Especially Arthi.
It's not actually that bad being a vampire.
It's like, there are perks.
You are now kind of immortal.
Oh,
you're going to look this cool for the rest of your life.
And Jin's like, I can kind of get behind that.
And Flick's like, so can I. So, I'm really looking forward to the second book coming out, and I really appreciated this book. It was a very fun read.
So, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, if you have any questions, comments, things you want to debate about, we have a Discord, and I would love to see you guys there.
Yeah.
Also, comment section is on, so the freedom to hang out there. So we're going to be doing this obviously once a month, not tomorrow, but next week we are going to have update video. We're going to be talking about changes in posting schedule and what our next month's book is going to be. So look forward to that. Love you guys. Mwah.
Bye.
Chew like you've never chewed before. Fast, Aubin. I know it might seem hard to you, but you can swallow now. Yeah, you can. It's physically possible. You should swallow now.
Guys, we've been preparing this episode for sorry.
Yeah. I didn't really fix our mics. For
a long
weeks. So.
Weeks.
Yeah.
Definitely. And recently I've been editing Ella's book, so. And I edited mine, so. I mean, I wasn't the only editor for mine. I had 2 other editors, but,
I spilled.
Okay.
We will be back shortly. Laths. That's where it's hard. If you're doing the S, like lace perspective.
Yeah.
Anyway,